Finally, the rest of the media is starting to catch on to what we have been saying on this channel for years now. Finally, the rest of the mainstream media, they are willing to admit the truth. There's no more time for pleasantries. There's no more polishing the turd. Finally, we've got people in the mainstream publicly admitting ESPN's coverage of the NBA is trash. It sucks. I mean, it sucks. What is Adam Silver doing? This is your chance. This is your opportunity to distance your league from the worst sports network on television. Seriously, can you tell me one sport, one league, where ESPN provides adequate coverage and analysis? Just one. This is the same network that claims Mina Kimes is an NFL analyst because she wrote a heartfelt letter describing how she bonded with her father watching the Seattle Seahawks. That's like me calling myself a mountain climber because I drove my 4Runner up the Smoky Mountains. I'm a damn good mountain climber with the assistance of 4-wheel drive. Seriously, what sport does ESPN cover well? Maybe one of the reasons that there is such a negative perception of the WNBA, you got a substandard product along with substandard coverage. Well, Casey, what about college football? What about it? ESPN has the insufferable Mark Jones and Bob Griffin the Trace calling major college football games. College game day is a flaming ass fire. Last fall, the audience, they told ESPN to get rid of Pat McAfee. We are tired of Captain Doofus ruining college game day. What does ESPN do? They announced that Pat McAfee is going to be returning next season. Of all the garbage coverage provided by ESPN, the one league that is covered worse than all others is the NBA. Yet for some reason, Adam Silver, reportedly anyway, Adam Silver is going to abandon TNT, the network NBA fans can actually tolerate. Alice is going to abandon TNT and re-sign with ESPN through the next decade. Doesn't make sense to me, but what the hell do I know? I'm not the commissioner responsible for losing half my audience in the last 10 years. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Yesterday was a very big day for the NBA. You could not have scripted a better setup, 2 Game 7s on the same day, one that featured the largest media market in the country with the game played at the Mecca of basketball, the most famous arena in the world, and the other game featuring the emerging face of the NBA, Anthony Edwards. Now, I watched both games yesterday. Obviously, Game 7 between the Nuggets and T-Wolves, or the Wolves, as Charles Barkley continued to call them last night. Game 7 between the Nuggets and Wolves. It was the more entertaining game, but the coverage provided by TNT, it was exponentially better than the coverage provided by the worldwide leader in woke. ESPN's coverage of Game 7 between the Knicks and the Pacers yesterday, I mean, there's just no other way to describe it. It was embarrassing. If I was a part of that broadcast, I would be embarrassed with the polished turd that we presented to the audience. As of the recording of this video, ratings haven't been released just yet for the 2 Game 7s yesterday, but more than likely, this was the largest audience so far this season for both the NBA and ESPN. And this is what you presented? This is what you call adequate coverage of the biggest game of the season to this point? Before I show you exactly what I'm talking about, let's go and get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends over at the Soapster. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm taking a shower, the last thing I am thinking about is the chemical makeup of my soap. I mean, seriously, who in the hell is thinking about the chemicals in the soap they're using? Well, you probably should, because a lot of soaps on the market, they are full of chemicals, which is why it's important to use soap from trusted companies like the Soapster. All of his soaps are made using the old-fashioned cold process method with natural ingredients, and they're made in small batches to keep the highest quality. There are no harsh ingredients, detergents, or hard-to-pronounce chemicals. Hell, this soap contains no chemicals, period. The Soapster, they make soaps with different fragrances to satisfy all members of your family. And for those of you guys that enjoy sporting a beard, Clearly, I do not, but for those of you that do, the Soapster. They offer great smelling beard balms. This product is an all-natural beard oil in solid form. It will make your facial hair soft while also smelling great. The Soapster products, they are all natural and made with essential oils, essential for good health. So click the link in the description below. Order these personal care items from the Soapster that will make you look and smell good. The Soapster offers great smelling soap, but if you're not into cleanliness and pleasant smells, ESPN, they were offering fresh shit yesterday afternoon. The garbage started immediately during their NBA pregame show. I challenge you to find a pregame show worse than NBA Countdown on ESPN. Most people think Countdown means that ESPN is counting down the minutes until the game starts. When this show is on the air, ESPN is actually counting down the number of viewers who are changing the channel. They start the broadcast by showing players entering Madison Square Garden getting ready for Game 7. They show Jalen Brunson. They filmed Tyrese Halliburton coming into the arena. Thankfully, both players were wearing clothes designed for men. These days in the NBA, you just never know what players are going to be wearing when they show up for these games. Nail polish, a dress from Lululemon, apple-bottom jeans, boots with the fur. The whole club was looking at her, then quickly figured out it was him. But then ESPN decided to show someone else entering the arena. Watch for yourself.
Can the Pacers gut out what they haven't this series? A win in MSG. Well, if this man is in the building, dressed with the cool cream, we are counting you down to tip-off on ABC.
When did Stephen A. Smith make his debut in the NBA? When did he sign with the Knicks? Did I miss something? This is the same Stephen A. Smith who couldn't make the basketball team at Northeast Southwest Wiener Tech. Why is ESPN showing him entering Madison Square Garden? It would have been more pertinent if they showed the equipment manager. At least the equipment manager is making a positive contribution to the team. Stephen A. Smith is a fan, and he's not even a good fan. This is the same dude that was praising Quentin Grimes last month for carrying the Knicks after the All-Star break when all their star players were injured. The same Quentin Grimes who was traded to the Pistons in early February. Stephen A. is such a big fan of the New York Knicks, he doesn't even know which players are on the fucking roster. This coverage was so bad yesterday from ESPN, even Pat McAfee was criticizing it. Jalen Brunson, he was injured in the second half, never returned to the game. Pat McAfee, he called out Doris Burke, claiming that she was heartbroken coming to the realization that the Knicks season was over. Pat McAfee said something to the effect of, when they announced Jalen Brunson wasn't returning, Doris Burke was silent for minutes. Yeah, for everyone else, that was the best part of the broadcast. Wouldn't bother me if Doris Burke's mic was muted for the entire game. For 3 hours yesterday, ESPN made passionate verbal love to the New York Knicks. It was like the Pacers, the team kicking their ass. It was like the Pacers didn't even exist. Once Doris Burke finished crying and regained her composure, she spent most of the fourth quarter talking about how great the season was for the Knicks. But the most embarrassing moment happened right before tip-off. Look, I don't have a problem with local and regional broadcasters showing favoritism to the home team. If I'm watching the Knicks on MSG, I expect them to be partial. If I'm watching the Denver Nuggets on altitude, I expect a Jokic love fest while the opposing team is completely ignored. When I'm watching a national broadcast, I expect impartiality. I expect both teams to receive an equal amount of coverage, especially when we're talking about Game 7 of the playoffs. During the final seconds of NBA Countdown, Malika Andrews, she gave full control to Stephen A. Smith. Why? Did Stephen A. have some last-minute breaking news that viewers just needed to know? Was ESPN going to entertain the audience by showing Stephen A. Smith airballing dunks on a 6-foot goal? Maybe Stephen A. was going to interview both coaches to get their thoughts right before the game started. No, and No. Malika Andrews handed the broadcast to Stephen A. Smith so he could give the Knicks a pregame pep talk. A pep talk that not a single player watched because, they were getting ready for the actual game. Watch for yourself.
You understand what's at stake. It's been since 2000 that we've been in the conference finals. We've waited 24 years for this moment right here. OG Anunoby is back. Josh Hart's going to play. When you talk about Game 7, it comes down to grinding. It comes down to guts. It comes down to who won it. Come up in here. Come up in here, Spike Lee. You come right here. Come right here. This orange and blue skies, baby. This is what it's all about right here. This is what we've been waiting for right here. It's Game 7. This is what it's about. Get that hat on. Put it back on. The New York Knicks, it's about grinding. It's about guts. It's about heart.
Maybe some people found that informative. Maybe some people thought that was entertaining. But here's the irony. That was Stephen A. Smith right before the game started. Guess where he was after the game ended? No one knows because we never saw him again. All that hype, all that over-the-top garbage, and we hear absolutely nothing from Stephen A. after the Knicks get their ass kicked? And look, it wasn't just yesterday's broadcast that was bad. ESPN has been presenting substandard coverage of the NBA for years now. That doesn't mean there aren't a few positives to their coverage. I think Mike Breen and JJ Redick are excellent. If they removed Doris Burke from the equation, they could be the best broadcast duo in the NBA. And I'm not saying that because Doris Burke is a woman. I'm saying that because three's a crowd. Me personally, I just don't like three-man broadcast crews. I like Mike Wilbon. Woj is okay, but for the most part, ESPN's coverage of the NBA, it sucks. They can't even get the small details right. The small things that elevate a broadcast. Theme song's a prime example. It's been 25 years. I still remember the theme song for the NBA on NBC. I know the NFL theme on both Fox and CBS. I know the NBA theme on TNT. The NBA's been on ESPN for over 20 years now. I cannot think of their theme music. Small things like that matter. ESPN used to have guys like John Saunders covering the NBA. Mike Tirico, Tim Legler was heavily featured back then. Dan Patrick, Stuart Scott, Greg Anthony, Doug Collins, Sage Steele, Hannah Storm, Chris Broussard. Today, we've got Stephen A. who doesn't watch the NBA. Hell, doesn't even watch his own team. Malika Andrews, Chiny Agwumike. I can't ever pronounce her name. It's not intentional. ESPN has dump divers in the WNBA covering the NBA. At one point this season, NBA Today, it featured an all-female cast. They are more worried about diversity and inclusion than presenting a good product. It just doesn't... The NBA on ESPN, it just doesn't have the same feel. There's something wrong with their coverage of the NBA. Yet for some reason, Adam Silver will keep ESPN as the NBA's primary broadcast partner. Give me your thoughts on this. Rest of the media finally admits ESPN's coverage of the NBA sucked. What did you think yesterday? Did you think ESPN's broadcast was sufficient for a Game 7 in the second round of the playoffs? How would you fix this problem? If I'm Adam Silver, I would go with NBC and TNT and get as far away from ESPN as possible. But since that's not going to happen, how would you fix ESPN's coverage of the NBA? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Skipping the rest of my usual spiel because I haven't been feeling well today, so I'll just see you guys tomorrow.